and good evening. I'm Melissa Idris. Welcome to The Future is Female. This is the show where we find the extraordinary in every woman. I'm delighted to introduce my guest today. Izzana Salleh is the co-founder and global president of Project Girls for Girls, which is a Harvard-born NGO that aims to empower young women with the courage, vision, and skills to take on public leadership and to act in leading change. Izzana, thank you so much for being on the show with me. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so tell me, I'm so curious to know, how did this happen, Project Girls for Girls? So it's a Harvard-born NGO. So that happened when you were attending Harvard with
Correct.
a group of friends. Okay.
Yes. So we were there, and actually the conversation started in 2016. And if you remember, at that time in the U.S. it was the election year.
Yes, it was Trump, wasn't it? Yeah,
yes,
and
Trump
Hillary.
up against Clinton, and so Harvard Kennedy School, very democratic environment, and majority of us were out canvassing for votes.
Okay.
But essentially, when the results that now we know what came true, a whole group of us, now my co-founders, we sat down and we had coffee and we thought to ourselves, if Clinton, the woman who's got all the pedigree, education, network, resources behind her, if even she could not be the president of one of the superpowers in the world, what fat chance that the rest of us regular mere mortals have? And so, if not you, then who? If not now, then when? Is a very large mantra and motto that they emulate in the school. And so we asked ourselves, our co-founders, what can we do? What resources do we have within our reach to make a difference so that women, we know the diversity stats, right? So that women can get into leadership positions. What else can we do? Generally, we don't believe that everything has to fall into the government space. That's why there's private sector, that's why there's NGO. And so the conversation started going, let's do something about it. Let's, we recognize the privilege of being in that school. How can we democratize the empowerment that the women there received, the education that we received? And so we approached our professors. And so we say it's Harvard-born because all of us pretty much gave birth to it there, but it's not necessarily a program by the school itself.
Understood.
Yeah.
Okay. So in thinking about doing something, so you said something needs to change. What was that something that you wanted to do?
Yeah, so we were also part of this program called the Women in Public Policy Program, and so a lot of us obviously had that interest in women in leadership. And based on our research, separate to this conversation, we realized that there were 3 reasons at that time why young women and girls didn't step into leadership. Aside from the systemic issue, what else? One was there was a lack of confidence. And data, even until today in 2024, that we collect still persists. Confidence seems to be an issue. Number 2, there was a perceived lack of skill sets available in themselves. And number 3, the support system. It's extremely important to have young women, or actually just people in general, hear others saying, yes, you can do it. Melissa, you're so amazing as an anchor. You can go high, you can go big, you can go global. When you hear that, when you hear third-party validation, it means a lot and it can change how you take action. And so we decided to create a program along these 3 pillars. How do we help young girls find that courage? How do we help them sharpen their skills, hard and soft skills involved in leadership, but also be the support system that they can and that they need?
Right.
And so in Girls for Girls today, generally how we function and our culture in Girls for Girls, whether in Malaysia or around the world, we're very positive. We're very encouraging. We're very hashtag women supporting women.
It's a sisterhood.
It's a sisterhood, exactly. And so your success and how fast you take off doesn't take away from my rizki or my luck or my path.
Right. Your light doesn't dim mine.
Exactly. And so I'm very grateful that we work, and this is a volunteer platform, so we work with so many like-minded women who establish this culture. Yes, you can do it. Sure, maybe you made a mistake in the past, but did you learn from it? What were the lessons you learned? What are you going to do next?
So that's a program, is it?
Yes, so we're a mentoring initiative, essentially.
A mentoring initiative.
Yes.
Okay.
So Girls for Girls, we're split into 3 pillars. First pillar is inclusive mentorship, where we partner with industry, whether government agency or university or NGO or corporates, so that we can deploy program, the mentoring program. And we talk about 6 different modules there: building trust with yourself, courageous leadership, the art of communication, negotiations, public service, and ethics and values in decision making. Because based on our further research, these are the areas that, you know, what we can do in a short period of time to create change and transform the woman's mind. So that's the first pillar, inclusive mentorship. Second pillar is insights and inspiration. This is essentially our upskilling pillar. We create, aside from the mentoring, we have personal branding workshops, money with purpose workshops, and things like that. Whatever we can do to supplement the 6 modules I mentioned earlier. And then we have a third pillar called networking. You and I both know that when you have to hustle for work, it's a lot about who you know.
Yeah.
You've got to bring the substance for sure. Yeah. We're not talking about don't do it with merit, that goes without saying. But you need to know people.
Yeah, to open the door, right?
To open the door, for people to know you, so people can call you. And so we create some networking opportunities with industry. So young girls, whether you're in Kedah, Terengganu, Sabah, if you join our program, you enter our database. You have access to our programs, and therefore you have access to our network.
Okay, all right. I want to know, so, okay, when you say young women, how young are these young women?
Sure. Globally, we address girls between 16 to 35.
Oh, very young.
Very young.
Why is that important?
So, well, our age group changes with the different demographics. Okay. So I say globally 16 to 35 because, for example, in certain countries where perhaps the child bride issue is more prevalent, then they start younger. So they empower the woman's voice. The woman knows when to say yes and when to say no, build trust with themselves, listen to the gut instinct, and have a network. But in Malaysia, we target girls ages 19 to 25.
Okay.
And this is end of university and early corporate years. Why do we approach this as you asked? Because you're just about to leave that safe space of university, your training ground, into the real world, or you've just entered. And if you are lost, you know, I remember my 20s, good God, I wish I had a mentor who held my hand.
Yeah, I was floating aimlessly around.
And so if we were to speak back to our younger self, our 19, 20-year-old selves, you know, what we're trying to do is bridge that gap. All the learning curve that we had, we want to be able to share and pay it forward to the next generation so that when they navigate the career space, they don't make the same mistakes we did, but also be able to navigate higher, faster.
Right. So I love this idea of the power of support because you're absolutely right. It can do so much, especially at a period where you're not fully, you know, engaged in your own self. Just to have that kind of support ecosystem around you can immensely beneficial. And you have a kind of a mentorship cohort. So talk to me about how you work with young girls and more established women. How does that relationship work?
Sure. I'll give you an example. Right now, Q1 2024, we're partnered with Talent Corp. And Talent Corp is huge about developing the young talent in this country, of which we have plenty. And they also have a mandate to try and increase the female labor participation rate. Right now in Malaysia, we're at about 55.3%, and the goal by 2030 is to be able to hit 60%. Why is it important to Talent Corp and this country to have more women in the workforce? Is because it's better for our economy, it's better for our people, it's better for our families, it's better for our children. And so where do we come in when we partner with organizations? Obviously, we're not-for-profit, so our resources are limited, but our content is strong. And so, you know, collaboration is the key, not competition. And so we collaborate with hopefully strong partners like Talent Corp, and we work with their database. So the mentees that we work with for this specific cohort is based on Talent Corp's database of, you know, they have a lot of universities within all their programs. And so Girls for Girls, our database is with the mentors, the industry women. Okay. Women like us who want to give back, who remember the challenges of our teens and 20s, but also remember how enthusiastic we were to be able to make it in the workplace.
Yeah, there was a lot of idealism and hunger to excel or to live up to the potential, but maybe we didn't have the tools or the skills. We weren't equipped.
Exactly, exactly. And so when you marry these two parties together, the partner and ourselves, they bring in mentees who can commit the time, who have interest in leadership, but want to be able to have access to mentors. We bring in the mentors. And women who are suitable, because in G4G, in order to build the courage, there's a certain way of approaching these girls.
In what way?
So we're very big. We have house rules. We're very casual in how we break the guard and break the wall down. But it's very important to give validation to the young women. In many cultures, and ours is not excluded, unfortunately, there's a lot of you don't know enough because you're young. You don't know enough because you're a woman.
Yeah.
Your space is in X area, but not frontline, not in leadership, etc. Of course, this is not to paint everyone with the same brush, but I'm saying it exists. And how do we know it exists? We wouldn't be able to do so many programs if it didn't, and we all know this. And so being able to bring in mentors who firstly do not agree with such culture, but secondly want to be able to help mold and shift the mindset. Say, hey, your voice matters. Speak up even if your voice shakes. How important is that? To hear the encouragement as opposed to, yeah, don't say it, sweep it under the carpet. And so young girls, when they hear validation, when they hear words of encouragement, and it becomes about the young girl and not about ourselves, we're there to help them, right? They are the star of their show, their life. And so we have, alhamdulillah, many mentors who feel this way and who want to make a difference. And so they volunteer their time, and good God, I'm so grateful to them.
Yeah, well, that's wonderful. So what does mentorship entail for us? Is it a six-week program?
Yes, okay. It's a 6-module program. So generally we do over 5 or 6 weekends. Okay. Sometimes it's a little shorter. Like this year, there's so many seasons: Chinese New Year, Ramadan. So, but generally it's a 5-weekend program, and so mentors who enter our ecosystem, they firstly go through an interview process. So we see that we share the same DNA. That's very important. Culture fit is very important for us. Obviously, they need to come with a professional experience as well. And then we undergo training. So we have an online training that happens for mentors around the world. So you see that it's not just the Malaysian experience. This is something that's happening to women and girls around the world.
Is it a universal experience? Is it all almost similar across all countries?
I am so sad to say yes.
Oh, okay.
But you know, there's specific nuances that change based on culture. The African culture is different than the Asian culture. But fundamentally, the unconscious bias persists. Okay. And you know, in Malaysia, we had partnered with a corporation that looked at the APAC region, and we had some Australian mentees. And I was very surprised to also find out that even in Australia, the unconscious bias persists. And you know, we have this preconceived notion that, oh no, certain Western cultured environments, perhaps they're more modern. No, in that same breakout circle that I had participants from India, Indonesia, Malaysia, Australia, the experience was the same.
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, it's horrible to hear, but there's also this kind of shared common experience that doesn't recognize borders. So Izzana, is for the mentees, for the young women who are lucky enough to be part of this program, how are they selected, and are they all Klang Valley centric? Do you go around the country to find other young women who might be interested?
So we partner with either government agencies, universities, corporations, or other NGOs. Okay. And so it depends on their database. And we try to partner with those who have a rather widespread database. So for example, with Talent Corp, we've seen commitment and participation from mentees from around the country. We had girls from Sabah, from Kedah. There was a girl who, our mentee, I'm so impressed, and she has my deepest respect for the commitment. She took a bus early in the morning on the first day, Saturday, to come for a program. We started at about 8:30 a.m. She was there, and after a program, she took a bus back at 3 p.m. The commitment to improving her life and also to extend her network. We had girls who came in from Pahang, and so I understand that these are the women who want to put in their all, and we give in our all and more. And so it's not just the Klang Valley thing, though of course that's predominantly where a lot of the girls come. We do a program in KL and Selangor, but we have seen from Kedah, Perak, Terengganu, Sabah, Sarawak.
Are there personal stories that have impacted you of young women who may, have been part of this in previous cohorts that have gone on, and you can see how they've embodied or used the skills they've learned?
Melissa, when you ask me that, I have goosebumps.
Oh, really?
So many stories. For example, one of our modules is about negotiation, and we know, you and I know this, last year the data came out that actually our gender wage gap has actually dropped from what used to be 72 to 75 cents that the woman earns to the male's dollar is now in Malaysia 66 cents to the dollar. So for every $1 a man earns, women get 66 cents. Yeah. Same education.
Two-thirds of a ringgit that we get.
I mean, that's really insane if you ask me. And so one of our modules is on negotiations, and we encourage HR professionals are not going to like me very much for this, but this is for our country, for our people, for the young kids. But we get them to role play how to negotiate. There's actually homework you need to do before, framework you should be thinking about, market research you should be doing, but most importantly, learning to break away from the fear of making mistakes. When you negotiate, it's a dance. It's a tango between two people, usually your HR person and yourself. But we get them to role play with our mentor, and our mentors push back.
Right.
And so, one of the testimonials that I've received on this module is that one of the girls who joined us in the early days, pilot days, and up to today, I think she has moved her salary 4 to 6x what it was when she first joined us.
Oh, now I have chills.
Yes, and I mean, my eyes just like tongue. Because how amazing it is to be able to help young women get the confidence and the tools to be able to better her life.
She's advocating for herself, right?
Yes.
Recognizing her value. I do want to ask though, because from the days that you helped conceptualize Girls for Girls, 2016, and today, the world has changed immensely. And while some of the challenges and barriers may be the same, the skills needed to achieve might have evolved. Okay. Have you seen any, where would you say the evolution is in terms of the skills needed to succeed in leadership today? Sure.
So actually, I've noticed the change, especially this year with our cohort. When we started piloting in 2017, very different, and actually it's not that many years, it's not a whole new generation, but just I think there's so much more material and many like-minded women who are out there doing this work together, right? The pie is big enough for all of us. But I notice in this cohort that we're dealing with now, and I think that's quite representative of young women out there, there's so many young founders of they're building their own organizations, or they've started entrepreneurship early. So either they have really great role models at home, or they're really absorbing what's happening out there in this world. When I was younger, you had to, I hope this is not telling my age, but you have to look for information. And now information, tools, everything is coming to you. And I'm seeing that in the young girls when I ask them how many founders are there in this group that I was dealing with 2 weekends ago. So many girls raised their hands, and I was so deeply impressed, which means that they're taking their future into their own hands as opposed to going with the flow.
Okay, well, so that speaks to me as there's more agency and there's a drive, a hunger, but yet we still see sometimes female founders don't get the support. Correct. They often fail very early in their entrepreneurial journey. So where is that gap then, Izzana?
So usually I'm going to put on my public policy hat. When we address such an ecosystem, we break it down into two. One is the systemic issue, and that means policy, leaders, political will, and things like that. And the second bucket that we look at is the woman herself, the empowerment program. So G4G addresses the individual, the empowerment side, and we're seeing a rise in this. However, where there's this gap, whether it's a gender wage gap, whether women are falling really early, is because our systems are failing us. So the women are very empowered. In fact, when I go to universities and I do programs, a lot of the deans and VCs are saying, hey, we need a program for the boys too. Oh. And I found that to be an interesting transition over the last 6 years.
Elaborate, what do you mean by that?
So, they're aware that women are very strong and empowered. However, this conversation, the sisterhood conversation that we're having, an equivalent but male ally type conversation is not happening with the young boys. And so perhaps maybe the same toxic masculinity conversation still happening. The girls are getting more empowered. They're like, yeah, let's do this. Let's smash the glass ceiling. Let's be able to achieve. But a lot of data shows that, and this is not just the Malaysian data, this is global, a lot of men don't know how to deal with this. So if the women are transforming, the men need to transform too. And by all means, I'm not saying that they become more feminine. Good God, no. We want, strong men, but we also want strong women so that we're both able to achieve our fullest potential. And so it's very interesting. A lot of educators and academics have been asking for one program for the boys. Right. But going back to the system conversation, for example, going back to what we said earlier about the female labor force participation rate, it drops when the woman enters ages 27 to 32 in Malaysia. And this is our child-rearing years, and so we don't have enough systems or policies in place for the care economy. Culturally, women hold the double burden syndrome, earning but also managing the home, managing the kids. So if we want to stay in the workforce, when the kids factor comes in, when we've birthed little humans, how do we then manage the time? All of us are limited. Time is a very limited resource. So systems, policies need to come in to be able to manage the dynamic that changes so that our participation rate is not just a single peak, but we have a double peak after we've given birth and we're able to come back and serve the country's economy again.
Have you seen things start to shift? You said that you're seeing stuff change on things change on the empowerment side, the confidence side, but what about the system side?
Sure. I definitely see the industry changing. So for example, I'd love a shout out to Kiddo Care.
Oh.
Kiddo Care is founded by amazing women who understood that care economy is the light at the end of that tunnel specifically. However, I feel we need more, not just Kiddo Care, but many more businesses, many more policies to support care economy so that it A, releases more women back into the workforce and supports them in an affordable manner, but also B, gets our male allies into this conversation as well, that there is that partnership. This conversation is not sort of putting the blame on anyone, just culturally it was not the case, and also many generations ago, perhaps for certain communities it was affordable to get help. But as we know, things are so expensive these days, including help, and so in Klang Valley there's no way to be able to, for families to survive if there's no double income in each household. But how do you do that if there isn't a support for the woman to get back into the workforce?
I mean, so much of this both in changing systems and changing attitudes requires partnership, collaboration, education awareness, all of that, and I know that's a large part of your work. Can I ask you, Izzana, how has your approach to advocacy and collaboration partnerships and working with young girls, young women, and also the mentors, how has that changed over the years for you personally?
Initially, when we started, like whenever you start something new and from ground zero, I wasn't too sure how the reception would be. Okay. And especially because globally we agreed that this was going to be a not-for-profit environment, right? But I have to say that as we brand ourselves, thank God for social media, and when people see the impact of our work, I have to say that we have so many great professional women out there who recognize the struggle that all these young girls are facing, like how they did when they were young. And so there is this paid forward DNA that is coming in. And so people do say, hey, I want to be able to do something too. I don't have the time to be able to create a whole platform, but I want to be able to give my time so that we will be able to make this change. And then you've got some women like me and my team who are willing to cancel, our...
Make this your life's work,
Make this our life's work, cancel our sleep and social and all of that, because it matters so much. To me personally, because I grew up in a very empowered home, my safe space. I have a Kelantanese father who's majorly, big advocate when it comes to women. He's a feminist.
Feminist father.
Yeah, he's big on education and earning income and all of that. And I have a mom who is big on women's rights, and it's in her DNA, so I grew up seeing that. But I remember as a young kid, when I followed my mom outside the home, I didn't see that. And so as a young girl, I didn't understand this disconnect. Of course, that was a privilege that I understand now as an adult, but as a kid, I couldn't understand that. How come my mom got to work, but these other moms couldn't? But my mom had great support. I remember asking her, how was she able to do what she did? She said, Yana, it takes a village to raise a child. And so then I remembered my grandma was involved, my aunties, cousins, and of course, the ecosystem.
Right.
And so today, it's like 3 decades later, the question is, why are we still having the same conversation? It should be at many X times higher.
So it's shaped you into wanting to see that change within our generation. Can I ask you, so this is, the month of March is the season for International Women's Day, right? You always get the conversation around quote-unquote women's empowerment. So what message would you like to tell our audience today that they can take away, particularly if there are young women listening who want to equip themselves with the skills and the vision and the courage to take up leadership or even to become an agent of change? What would you tell them?
You've got to take action. There's a lot of things that we want, a lot of things that we're scrolling and inspiring us, but one small action that could look like dropping a DM into the organization that you want to be a part of, or being part of a community, that one little action can really change the landscape of your life. So take that action, even if it's in bed, on your phone, scrolling, do that, because you'd really be surprised how then you change the network you are in, or what kind of activities that you enroll yourselves in that shifts your mind, that makes it better, and you answer the higher call of which you are meant to be. And so take that small action.
Wonderful. Izzana, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
What a joy it is to talk to you. Thank you.
Pleasure's totally mine.
That's all we have for you on this episode of The Future is Female. I'm Melissa Idris, signing off for the evening. Thank you so much for watching, and good night.